Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with one of the most creative Zerg players out there. From Canada in the blue, it's Scarlett. And lined up against her in the red, the French Protoss DNS. Best of 3, Protoss versus Zerg, where we'll see whether Scarlett has a genius new strategy to combat Protoss, or almost as likely will die trying. But either way, before we get started, it'd be awesome if you could smash the like button. And maybe even subscribe. And Jimmy, what are we? 1,389 likes on this video, on this cast. I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways. I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. Ghost River. The usual fare. 3 hatches. DNS didn't manage to, or wasn't interested in blocking the Natchery here, so Scarlett will be able to expand to 3 bases in the normal order, which is actually quite a luxury as Zerg. We don't get many of those nowadays. Hard times for those who aren't Cyril, which is pretty much everyone. Meanwhile, though, 2 gates at the front, 2nd Oracle on the way, and a handful of Zerglings, assuming you can fit 4 in your hand, which doesn't seem too unrealistic. Oh, I'm sorry. But Warp Gate completes and a Roach Warren already on the way. We'll have to we'll put a pin in that for now. DNS not trying to get that 3rd base right off the bat, but instead waiting for the first group of Adepts and hiding both Oracles. So Scarlett may think this is a Twilight Council, but instead it is just that early Oracle build. And this very well could do more damage than expected. Scarlett building the Spore Crawler like this is going to be DTs, but instead the Queen scrambled into position and missed the shots on those early drones. But the Queen's, Brenda, I told you to stay in the main. Shut up, Susan. We all got bamboozled. 6 drones dead, and off to a rickety start here is Scarlett's economy as she was attempting to hedge her bets against the DTs. That's why we saw the Spore Crawler kind of halfway in between the hatchery. At least some revenge, kills off the Oracle. 7 drones dead in general. And DNS did not get the 3rd base quite as quickly. He did a good job of masking the fact that this was not really an all-in, but kind of an off-kilter timing. But isn't so far ahead that Scarlett needs to take massive risks in order to catch up. It was a bit more damage than she would be hoping for, obviously, but still 55 to 51 drones. Layer on the way, and Roach Warren is already done. So plenty of options as a follow-up. And this map, you can follow up across the map pretty quickly if you're so inclined, especially if the Queens are interested in a cross-country trip. We'll have to see. As Blink and +1 are now on the way, the Twilight creep spread's already halfway across. Not to be underestimated. In fact, it's impossible to overestimate Scarlett's creep spread. Now we have 4 Adepts and 2 Stalkers, better known as not remotely close to enough to be this far onto the creep. The only reason they're safe at all are the Oracles behind. Rocks will be taken down. Scarlett not respecting this at all, and the Adepts actually call her bluff and will shade through. They get 2 drones, but that was more of an example of whether or not you could rather than whether or not you should. So Scarlett making sure that there's no rock left unkilled. And behind it, a Templar Archives and a robotics facility for DNS as he continues to tech up. The Oracles, it seems like they were surprised that they got here so quick. A bit of a awkward angle there, but the Oracles are driven away as the Queens unleash their unlimited store of knitting needles upon them. Templar Archives and a Robo alongside that Blink and +1. So DNS is essentially progressing the tech tree all the way to near the end game. The end game, of course, is your Sky Toss, but he's going to have access to pretty much anything you need to combat the Roaches, the Ravagers, and the Zerglings, assuming he goes for Storm here. Infestation Pit on the way, which 50-50-50 shot of Swarm, Host, Hive, or both. On this map, swarm hosts are better than most, as you can use the map against them. Since the expansions go further away from the main as time goes on, it gets easier and easier. Well, not easier and easier, but it's easy to get damage done compared to your more standard layout. But at the same time, swarm hosts take... well, there it is. Sir Richard and his merry band of swarm host brethren once considered an accident to build even one, but there hasn't really been any buffs to swarm hosts. It's just the maps have kind of gotten a bit more constricted, which kind of somewhat indirectly buffs the swarm host. And I think players are have gotten a lot more experienced with them. So that's why we see a significant uptick in swarm host usage in the last 6 months or so. Always good to see something a little bit different. The swarm hosts of old, the heart of the swarm hosts, very different than the swarm hosts we have today. Those were an unending slog of locusts, whereas this is a quick burst of them that can do terrible, terrible damage, but is gone almost as quickly as it starts. There's a Nidus on the way. Scarlett heads south. DNS snipes off a couple Ravagers. And the Zerglings starting to surround. And well, a whole bunch of Zealots are warped in. Storm should be done. There's a Void Ray on the way. The Swarm Host, the first wave of Locusts. And even a Queen over here. Now we see. At least DNS doesn't have any tacking up too vulnerable location. The Locusts just drop down. Hold position to back 14 probe kills. And the Nexus is taking a whole lot of oh, so close, but yet so far. Though that Nexus can't be repaired. It can be reshielded. But now a Nidus to the south side, as the Swarm Host will continue until morale improves. And it's at an all-time low right now. So that shouldn't take long, I guess. Lurker Den's on the way. Plenty of gates. DNS still has 71 workers. Brenda holding against it. Another Nidus to the north side. But Warp Gate might be good for Protoss, but Nidus, effectively the same thing for Zerg. Maybe even better here. I was able to teleport from one side to the other. The Swarm Host probably the greatest beneficiaries, using storms to take out Locusts. Energy versus cooldown-based units. There's a fleet beacon on the way. As Scarlet Swarm Hosts, well, they're not doing enough to keep DNS from getting to 180 supply, and now an assortment of Stargate units have arrived and will burn through the Nidus and deter any more Swarm Hosts from coming out of it. The biggest struggle on this map in particular is there's only 6 bases on your side. These are the least amount. It's the least amount of bases of any map in the pool. There's nowhere to go, nowhere to hide, and nowhere to mine from, most importantly. So we're getting already down to those last bases. Scarlett expanding to her 5th. And the 6th base is right down the center. DNS, despite not really counterattacking or doing much damage at all, has held the line, and now is at nearly 200 supply of Protoss. And one bad wave of Swarm Hosts, one misfire, or one kind of ill-fated timing, and a significant portion of Scarlett's army supply is essentially obsolete for the next 40 seconds or so. So, groove spines done, seismic spines as well, whole chiropractor's office of spines across the board, and adaptive talons being added in, the lurker speed. I'll speed burrow. Ravagers and Lings. Does he have adrenal glands? Quite an oversight there. No cracklings at the moment. The creep is over halfway across the map, and there's no observers with this army, evidenced by the lack of creep clearing, which means there's no way to stop these lurkers. And DNS, a critical oversight here. That may very well slow down the attack. Meanwhile, Scarlett breaking through the south side will force a recall. What's inside there? 2 Archons, and not enough to keep Scarlett away. Just, well, the Archon's gonna die, so it will thin out this force. Meanwhile, the main army, the storms washing all over the Locusts. Some of them will be able to drop down, but A revelation catches a few of the lurkers, and DNS is moving forward. 16 more Hydras on the way, but there's still plenty of energy on the Templar. +2 ground weapons done for the Protoss army, and now the swarm hosts are on cooldown. They're gonna warm right back up, incubate those locusts, and be ready to send out another wave. The Queens, really the only reliable anti-air here, as always. Couple Vipers on the way. Warp Prism makes its way towards the north side, and Mothership has joined up with the main army. Warp Prism looking, well, doing what it does best. Looking for an angle in the corner of the main. 5,000 minerals, but only 600 gas right now for Scarlett, who's going for double Spire. But can she afford it? The Swarm hosts head up north, might be able to finish off the Nexus. They haven't had an opportunity to go on offense for quite a while. And I'm not sure if it's the right call now. As DNS moving in. A prime time warp opportunity. DNS agrees. And here come the Templar sliding up and raining down the storms. Feedback nails the Viper out of the sky. And the lurkers don't look like they're quite enough. The storms are helping out. But without those swarm hosts in support, Scarlett just barely able to repel this attack. And she still has the creep over much of the map. She knows what this army is and where it is, but beating it, on the other hand, is the harder part. Recalling forward, the tactical recall from DNS with the carriers in the front. What a move! And the aggressive recall, much like the Nidus, to reinforce that attack. The swarm hosts are trying to burrow another wave of locusts. Somehow the Nexus didn't die in the last one. Spore crawlers running up into the fray. Spore crawlers are... Oh, that's a bit desperate and also somewhat sad. The spores tripping over each other to get anything done. Some of them unable to burrow. But Scarlett unable to... She doesn't have enough anti-air. Okay, that's the simple version. The Hydras are trickling in. The Queens are poking and prodding. The spores are struggling to burrow. The Mothership may very well die to spore crawlers, but the storm on the ramp is zoning out the Hydras. And while Scarlett has another base, she just doesn't have any gas. Back to the... Where does that bring you? Back to me. The Queens. Oh, shut up. But really, though, Scarlett does indeed need Queens. Swarm hosts snipe off another Nexus. And the Zerglings. Storms on the army. 7 more Hydras on the way. There's 11 Hydras. There's still 7 carriers. That is an untenable amount of carriers. You could kill every Nexus, but there's just not enough anti-air to fight this right now. Carriers fighting Zerglings, which is always an awkward one. Storms again. There was a Viper. A whole lot of the drones going down. Yanks in an Immortal. A carrier getting caught off to the side, but it's not enough to actually kill it. This army, it's just not dying. They're just not dying. GG. What a game. A hectic experience in game 1. But DNS comes out on top, holding it together. I love the aggressive I haven't seen too many actually productive forward recalls, dragging units into the fight. But quite a great example of it there. DNS switches to air in time, and I think Scarlett got kind of caught about half a tech step behind. The Swarmos were a good idea. The Lurkers were a great one. But by the time they came together, DNS had already taken to the skies, and neither of those units is particularly good against the carriers. So that brings us to game 2. French Protoss up. Well, that's another example of Scarlett. What a creative strategy. Or at least a creative execution of it. But at the same time, not really respecting what the Sky Toss has to offer. So, no. Scarlett, no. Don't, no. I don't know what I expected. Speaking of no respect. So, how does this go? Scarlett is double expanding to both naturals. A Zealot comes out. The intent of this is not to win the game. This is a similar yet more dramatic style of blocking the second base. It appears DNS is not in a real hurry to take it out. If you really want to take it out, you bring down like 4 to 7 probes or so. 7 is the number to kill it just with probes, but interesting. They will get through it. I assume we're going to see a cancel. Will she do the Evo block behind? Doesn't quite have the mineral. I don't think it would work. There's a little spot of creep. Oh, and the drone gets out. Oh, wait. The Adept is coming. The chase is on. Drone goes off to the side. We'll escape for now. DNS with 2 Adepts and 2 Zealots. Quite a scary force for someone who doesn't have any Zerglings yet, but a Spine Crawler built on the low ground. And now the Zerglings popped out. Scarlett, I think, got the best of both worlds with this. She didn't have to commit to the proxy hatch. And now she's baited DNS into building all these gateway units, but perfect timing on the spine. And that means Scarlett pretty comfortable on 2 bases, while DNS hasn't even finished his second Nexus, obviously. So, but there is a Stargate and an Oracle on the way. So plenty of opportunity to get some damage done. And the Adepts selling it. Between Adepts and Oracles. Oh! Oh. Adepts trying to get into that little area. On this map in particular, there's you can jam yourself right behind the mineral line. But Scout already has enough links, I think. Therefore I am. But also, the Zerglings. Just enough links. Surround the Zealots. The Oracle halfway across the map. And another Oracle lights up. Has to turn off again. Just like your mom said, don't keep turning your Oracle off and on. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough energy, and Zerglings are going to rip your face off. We all had that lesson, right? Another forward spore. Not actually sure what the intent of that is. I guess a small chance of DTs, but feels a little odd to be building another spore at this stage, but then you have the spore ready for the third, I guess. So either way, Scarlett has navigated a pretty treacherous line when it comes to whether or not you're building drones at this stage, and ends up with a 10-worker lead. DNS unable to get anything done with that early aggression. Early counter-aggression. Don't forget the trespassing drone. All right. And so far, so good for Scarlett. Charge. Templar Archives. DNS doesn't have a third. This is going to be a +1 charge lot Archon all in behind. A pretty smart choice, considering. Scarlett doesn't know for sure what she's dealing with. Does she even know about these gases? No. She has to kind of hedge her bets. Is it going to be more Stargate units? Unlikely, but not impossible. Is it going to be a Glaive Adept all in? More likely, but also it's far from impossible. Charge lot Archon is a bit more of a reach, but certainly in the realm of things. And an Overseer is coming in just in time to spot what this is. But will there be time to react? There is a Warp Prism on the way already. And the Templar will be able to merge. DNS at least pretending like he wants to take a third. And obviously that Nexus is something that you'd like to have, but there's already 10 Hydras on the way. Scarlett up to 62 drones. 14 Hydras. This actually is going to work out just fine. Scarlett, again, just a step ahead. Oh. This is still a very dangerous army to small amounts of units. But once the Hydra count gets into double digits, none of these units are going to handle it. Oh, the Adept Shade, not quite. Groovy Spine's done. Baneling Speed done. All coming together. Bit of an anti-timing here for DNS, unfortunately. Stasis hits some of the Banes, but not enough. The Warp Prism forced to retreat. The charge lots being pulled away from the Banes that they desperately want to charge into. But Scout at 66 drones. Still building Hydras. Looking very good for the Canadian Zerg here. And our prospects of a Game 3. And I felt like a very well-practiced proxy hatch. It's not an uncommon strategy. Solid, like probably low double-digit percent. Like 10-15% of the time it's used in this matchup. Just overall, whoop. The Hydras don't have speed, so they won't be able to chase down the Prism. I don't think they quite catch it anyways, but Scarlett has, wow, 25 Hydralisks against 10 charge lots, 4 Archons, 2 Oracles, and a Dream. That's way too much. That's not happening. The Archons, even with good hits, there's just the sheer biomass here. Another stasis trigger trying to juggle the Archons. An applaudable effort. But now we're applauding the end. Scarlett fights back. Game 2 off the proxy hatch, or at least the proxy hatch block. And we're going to the decider. Rarely does it go so smooth. I haven't seen anyone pull off that build quite so smoothly. I gotta say, DNS looked like he didn't care at all. Just, okay, I can do my 2-gate timing now. Not pulling any probes. A very decisive action, even if in action. Not exactly sure what happened here. Jimmy, the game has been recovered from a replay. Well, good news about that. Maybe Scarlett reflexively picked Protoss. Wait, but then it wouldn't be recovered. Not moving on. I don't think anyone would voluntarily pick PvP. And if they do, if someone in your life says, I actually prefer to play Protoss versus Protoss, get them some help. That's a cry for help is what it is. So, act accordingly. I believe it was Raynor, was during DreamHack or something like that, who, I think he was against Harstem, where Harstem asked him, are you going to pick Protoss after a match or something? And Raynor wrote, I'd rather cut off my hand than play PvP. And Raynor, the only player in recent history who's actually picked Protoss, but specifically against Zerg, which is really truly walking the walk. Scarlett is probably the second most notorious Protoss picker. Probably the first player in any sort of major tournament to switch race. Mid-game, or mid-series. I believe MLG, I want to say 2013, which is 28 years ago, by the way, for those of you counting. But if you remember that, make sure to smash that like button, all 14 of you. But I think it was against DRG. And switching to Protoss and doing like a charge lot all in that worked. And it was disgusting and amazing, all at the same time. Stargate, once again the choice. Void Ray first. an interesting choice. The Void Ray, a mysterious unit. The Void Ray is not... It's just... It's much like the Stalker, in that it does everything kind of okay for way too high a price. After the reversion from the Super Void Ray, which lasted several years, much to the dismay of most players, it's just expensive. It costs 4 supply. It doesn't have the DPS of an Oracle. It's not as fast as a Phoenix. It's not as thick as a Tempest. It's not as well-liked as a Carrier. And you might be like, well, it's kind of Stockholm Syndrome with the Interceptors, all right? They have to live in the Carrier. They don't really get a choice in the matter. Well, that's really not relevant here, I don't think. Whereas, I mean, it's even in the name, Void. Devoid of anything, besides maybe a legacy. And, all right, enough of whatever that was, and now it's time. The fleet beacon is lit! The Sky Toss call for aid! And DNS is rushing. Get carriers? Mothership? Tempest? Speed Void Ray? No. I can, with 97.6 repeating % confidence, say it's not for Speed Void Rays. I will just stop talking the rest of the cast. I was coming up with something clever. I will stop talking the entire rest of this cast and just stare if it's Speed Void Rays first. Okay. The Void Ray in and of itself... Okay, it's carriers, thank God. I don't know how I'd stop talking, but... What was I? The Void Ray in and of itself is suspicious. Anyone going Void Ray first, alarm bells are already going off. It's kind of a meta choice in and of itself to go for the Void Ray, because if you go for Void Ray against Zerg, they're just going to assume you're doing some weird, crazy tech. Which means sometimes you can get away with doing just a standard build and they play defensive. But in this case, it's a rush to carriers. And Scarlett will get in. She will see this upgrade. She doesn't have the little icon, but there is an animation. And we'll know if she starts a Spire or an Infestation. I think you just... If you think it's carriers, you go Spire, right? Now, that's a lot to read into off of just the Cyber Core upgrading. We will see. The carriers are building up. Again, DNS holding those Stargate units in reserve, waiting for enough of them to potentially... Well, oh my God. No, don't look. I said first. It doesn't count. Flux veins. I don't know, Flux veins noise. But Void Ray speed. Really? And now Aspire is on the way. Not for Mutas. I mean, maybe. Actually, I don't know. We're fighting in the production tab now. Actually, and building Void Rays. Oh my God, it is a Void Ray build. Just to spite me. That's surely what this is. No, you don't just go... This is a Void... Speed Void timing. Carrier Void Ray... Now, oh! Brenda! Is everyone here? Yes, Edna, Jennifer, Sybil, is that you? It's been years! Shut up, Brenda, focus! Shut up. Not that. The Interceptors easily taken down. There's been more than enough warning. Scarlett brought all the queens together. And now? Well, that's enough carriers. And the Void Rays are all charged up. The prismatics are fully aligned. Now, that only does extra damage to armored. Contrary to popular Gold League 4v4 belief. But it does look very intimidating. Though it does slow down the Void Ray, so that's kind of a tax on you. Void Ray, try to chase the roach just until it's... got it. The Void Ray is kind of a soft lock-on. If it continues in the same direction, it will continue to attack a unit up to a few extra range. 14 corruptors on the way, approaching a full congress of corruptors. As Scarlett, 87 drones. DNS is building mass void ray, causing me to eat my words in much the way Protoss can't eat anything because of a lack of mouths. 2 more voids. It's still just 2 Stargates. Yeah. +1 air and ground for the Protoss. Scarlett will just be hammering on this with Corruptors. There is no storm, it's just Archons. The Zerglings will force the cancel on the Nexus. And every moment that Scarlett is able to keep the Protoss economy limited is another moment that she can focus on massing up units. That was a kind of unwieldy way to say the Protoss cannot get storm and replenish their army while on just 3 bases. The numbers, they don't lie. And they, Brenda! We've arrived! Revenge! Well, but slowly! The Corruptor's overhead, but there's no creep for Transfuse. Corrosive Bile looking to knock out some of the Void Rays, but the Prismatic Alignment helping out a lot. The Queens maybe got a bit ahead of themselves, stuck on the ramp. Corrosive Bile again raining down. The Corruptors enough, even with the Void Rays charged up there. The ground fight is being lost by Scarlett, but she's winning in the skies. And lost it's a bit of a Pyrrhic victory for DNS, who also lost the 4th base again. Whereas Scarlett ends up losing most of the Corruptors by the end of things. And all of the Queens! She has no Queens! So that was a bit of an overcommitment. In fact, some might even call it a bite of an overcommitment, as now Scarlett is left with 2 Corruptors for anti-air. And is just building roaches. Now, there's still only 2 carriers. But that does seem like a bit of an undercommitment to the anti-air options. Scarlett, gotta be careful not to navigate the narrow path to defeat through the canyon of victory. The 2 Corruptors are melting the Nexus. It's gonna take quite a while. Actually, it won't take very long as the Stalkers are about to kill them off. They do. There's no more anti-air left. The mass, not really mass, but the Void Ray spam is doing enough to keep DNS going. But Scarlett is rebuilding. You know, at some point, Mutas may actually be the choice, as they do better against Void Rays, though I'm not sure about the actual math on that. Why is this Corruptor here? What are you doing? Like my father and forefather before him, we like to spray on the Nexi in order to mark our territory. Ew. Don't be weird, Brenda. You kind of do the same thing with hatcheries. Huh. Roach Ravager in towards the 3rd. There are a bunch of DNS unable to get a 4th base. And without a 4th base, unable to really complement this army composition. The Corrosive Biles don't quite knock out the shield betters. The Archons doing a lot of damage. Enough, though? The Void Rays are fast, but that's not necessarily a good thing in this sort of scenario. Carriers still being trickled in. Oh, but the Corruptor count. Still some Zealots at the natural. Like, 2 fights here happening on 2 different sides of things. Scarlett is starting to tick up that supply advantage. The Zerglings get in. And then are immediately pushed away as even more Zealots get into the fray. The creep spread is now within spitting distance of the Nexus. As the Roach Ravager comes in for another round. Corrosive Biles land in the midst of the Sky Toss army, softening up the carriers. The Corruptors knocking down even more. And critical mistakes. I'm not sure what DNS was doing. It looks like he was setting up a counterattack, but eating that much damage from corrosive bile is certainly not going to help his chances of actually putting together an army that at some point can pretend to win the game. Scarlett has the quantity, and that's a quality all its own. The Warp Prism, a single queen here to strongly disagree with its... Oh my god! strongly disagree with its presence. Now Adrenal Glands on the way, +2 air attack. Carapace is already done, which is very helpful against the Interceptors. Not as incredible against the Void Rays, but everything helps. Now the Roach Ravager force fields. The Ravagers, of course, can knock them down if they're so inclined. Corruptor's looking for another opportunity, sliding around the top corner, trying to absorb some of the damage. Shield Battery Overcharge helping out a lot, but knocks down another carrier. And still more units on the foot. That overcharge really paying off. But the Zerglings just DNS can't get a fourth. Can't get anything going. And Scarlett just keeps hammering on. Caustic Spray. And... Oh! Not again. It's like with the Swarm Host in Game 1. But I don't think it's going to be the defining characteristic here in Game 3. Scarlett is, everything points in her direction. The Void Ray's trying to as well, but haven't found a lot of success. DNS never... The furthest he got it... Did Scarlett just kill her own Roach while targeting an Observer with Corrosive Bile? Acceptable losses. Still no fourth. How many times can DNS attempt to take a fourth base and fail? I think it's time. Just gonna go all in. Trying to head across the map. Archon's doing a lot of damage, but Scarlett can replace all these units. He's got 83 drones, like, it's going just fine. Another warp, and the Archons will have to get the job done. There's 30 Roaches, a handful of Ravagers. The Spore Shirt is put together, though. A wave of Corrosive Bile. And the Queen's getting involved yet again. Another wave knocks down the Void Ray. The Archon's going to be whittled down. The Carriers knocked to the ground. And Scarlett, with 2 in a row, we'll take it back 2-1. A good attempt from DNS, but that brings us to our bonus game, a rematch of that match I so subtly mentioned. DRG versus Scarlett, except like 12 years later. I don't think Scarlett's going to play Protoss, but I'm not sure. Scarlett also has some ridiculous ZVZ strategies. I saw her going 3 hatch before pool, which is very much illegal. Except when Scarlett does it, but our bonus game. DRG versus Scarlett. Pool first! Anti-spoiler game. DRG, on the other hand, hatch first. No drone scout, of course. It's very rare in this matchup. I will bait you. No, don't turn them off before the game actually starts. But yes, you're going to watch a mirror matchup, and you're hopefully going to like it. And subscribe even. At least this one won't be sitting back and building up to +1 Roaches at the 6-minute mark, and that being the entire game. As Scarlett is going for a 1-base Bane Bust, which is certainly a commitment. A worthy one? Well, sneaking out. The Overlords will not see it. Not until it comes down this ramp. So an extra few seconds that DRG's unable to prepare. So the difference is, if you see it earlier, you can save up larva. You can save up larva in order to build more Zerglings right as it comes out. But it looks like it has enough 4 lings. So no spawns. The hatchery itself starting to take a lot of damage. And DRG is going to see that Scarlett does not have a hatchery. And that means she's effectively all in on one base. If Scarlett had a hatch coming up, that would mean she doesn't have Zergling speed on the way. Or if she does, it's pretty late in the grand scheme of things. So DRG coming down to defend, this actually is a bit of a dicey endeavor. Trying to hold on to his base here. He already pre-pulled the drones, but pulls back and actually cancels the queen in order to save a few extra minerals. Gives up the hatchery. The banelings were too tall in order. Spinecrawler is rooting, but not quite done yet. The banelings, looks like Scarlett is comfortable with just sitting back and building up. A few more Zerglings pop out. The larva itself could be targeted. Spinecrawler on the ramp. Scarlett does only have 13 drones. DRG at 18, so this is one of those odd scenarios where DRG should still have the lead. Kind of. Oh, wait, what are you trying to do? No, that doesn't work. DRG, do you know how creep works? Where are you going? He's trying to use the creep tumor stick to... Brenda! Get out of the... How many... Get the fuck out of the way! Holy Susan! We're gonna get demonetized! Just... Shh. Spinecrawler, with no issues, gets down the ramp. Now DRG expanding the natural. Scarlett is caught up in drones, has finished up her second base now, and will not be getting in here. Those queens are more than enough. But the key part is that DRG doesn't... Well, DRG just got a ling in. So, until this moment, DRG didn't know the level of commitment that Scarlett had. So, could not make a great assessment on whether or not it'd be a good idea to stick around. Now getting a lair. That those Zerglings actually catches a Zergling on its way out. Another one. Oh, not quite enough. Scarlett has her third on the way. Whereas DRG is headed towards the lair. So it's either Nidus or Mutas. It looks like Mutas. Nope, Jimmy, not that. And the Spire's on the way. The 2 spine crawlers. If Scarlett gets a single ling in, she doesn't even need to see the spire, but seeing either the lair or the gas geysers at the natural would be enough of a tell. But the longer this goes on, the more likely it is DRG will get mutas out uncontested. So it comes down to whether Scarlett has enough to deflect them back at home while still building up, as DRG keeps leapfrogging the spine crawlers. Pushing away the Ovies. Single ling, taking a look around. Overseer on the way. And it looks like Scarlett up against yet another air rusher. Though, she did kind of lead DRG down this path. Pops the Overlord. And yeah, that's enough. She's already got 3 queens on the way. She doesn't need to see the Spire to know what she's dealing with. Though it'd be very helpful to do so. The queens... Zerglings. The amount of queens is clearly a tell. Infestation pit now on the way. Queen's a much better direct anti-air option than Hydras, as they don't cost gas, among many other things. Especially against mutas, which are not the most dangerous creatures in a straight-up fight. Instead, look to avoid confrontation, though. The Baneling's getting caught out, and Scarlett's still with a few Overlords out there in a bit of an awkward spot. Building spores now. Almost picks off one muta. Another Overlord gonna go down, but she's already preempted that with several more. Not gonna be supply block. 5 Spore Crows, now 2 Infestors. Hydralisk Den's on the way, but it's gonna be a hive. All right. As soon as this queen pops out. Okay, like 4 seconds after this queen pops out. What are we waiting on? A few more roaches. This is obviously annoying. DRG's still going mutas. Not gonna try to switch it up into a big ground army, but instead relying on the mutas as the choice. And Scarlett just infestors in order to hold him down. Well, or at least hold him near in place. Not quite down. Infestors are out. Hydra's on the way. Infestors also kind of serve a dual purpose, also against Banelings. Quite helpful. No lurkers. Fire attacks level 1 about to complete. But this is DRG's whole army here. It is the mutas. Just now building a Baneling nest. That means DRG is one good fungal away from disaster. It isn't a full game ender, as they should mostly be able to escape, but the damage. Scarlett? Well, there's a Baneling nest on the way, but Baneling speed is a long way off. The muta's still sharking around. DRG putting all of his eggs in this flapping basket. Like, they very well could work. I'm just so stressed out. Like, either there's the infestors connect or they don't. That's what it comes down to here. And heading into the main. The Spore Crawler is getting targeted. The drone's under fire as well. The queens back at home to defend, whereas the main army's moving out now. Scarlett building another round of roaches. Some Banelings being triggered at the 3rd. And the Hydras are coming out. The mutas, ooh, the Infestor's just a couple seconds late, but the Roach Hydra on its way across. Baneling speed is on the way, but it's far from completed. And the Hydras are already on the high ground. The 3rd base, under attack. There's enough Hydras here to beat those mutas straight up. Banelings are kind of required here, but DRG's just fighting the Hydras. The Infestors haven't even gotten involved. You know, Microbial Shroud could be a real choice here. And yes, Scarlett uses it right before she claims the victory. Appreciate Fungal and Microbial Shroud. But Scarlett with a solid victory over DRG. Though not as dramatic as I hope, but still a solid game. DRG still stuck on that Mutiling Bling composition for the last 12 years. DRG mix it up, though it was a bit under duress. Oh, a fun set of games, in my opinion. And hopefully one you share. Jimmy, what happened to the font? What do you mean they need to like and subscribe so we can afford the fancy fonts? That's not... Well, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you got the means of motivation, be awesome. Check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But otherwise, your liking and subscribing is still free for now. And check out the 2nd channel for more content. Info in the description, all that. Winter Gaming TV. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.